Routing is component-based, so we identify the set of components that we want to provide as routing targets and define a route for each one. Configuring routes involves defining a route name, a URL segment, and the associated component. For example, to configure a route that displays the product list view, we give it a name, products, a URL segment, /products, and the associated component, product list component. To create a router and configure routes, we use the Route Config decorator and apply it to any component that wants to manage routes. For clarity, we'll call the component that manages the routes the host component. Note: as of this recording, the Angular team plans to rename this decorator to Routes, but that change is not yet in place, so we'll use Route Config throughout this module. We first need to import Route Config from Angular to Router. Then we add the Route Config decorator to a host components class and use it to define our routes. The Route Config decorator takes an array of objects. Each object has a path, a name, and a component. The path property defines the URL path segment for the route. When this route is activated, this URL path segment is appended to the URL of our application. The user can bookmark this link to return directly to the associated components view. The name property is any name we want to assign to this route. This is the name we'll use in the template or in the code when referencing this route. The name must be in Pascal case, meaning the beginning letter of each word is capitalized, including the first letter. Otherwise, the router confuses the name with the path and generates an error. The component property is the component associated with this route. When the route is activated, this component's view is displayed. Note that this is an actual reference to the component, not its string name, so each referenced component must be imported. There is also a UseAsDefault property. We use this to define the default route. The default route is displayed when no other route is activated. Ready to try this out? Since we want our root app component to host our main routes, we define the routing configuration there. We'll begin by adding route config to our import statement. Be sure to add it to the import from Angular2/router. Then we add the route config decorator to the app component class. Yes, a class can have more than one decorator attached to it. The route config is a function, so we need parentheses. And it takes in an array, so we need square brackets. Each array entry defines a route. I'll paste the routes and we can talk through them. First, we define the route to the welcome component. The welcome component was provided as part of the starter files and displays a welcome page. Here we specify the path defining the URL segment associated with this code. Then we give this route a name that must start with a capital letter. And we specify a reference to the component. Notice the syntax error here. Since the component property specifies a reference to the component and not its string name, we need to add an import statement for it. Then we set this welcome route as the default route. The second route is similar and defines the route to our product list view. Now we need a way for the user to activate these routes.